Cornell football lost a gut-wrenching 23-21 ball game against Brown last Saturday on the road, a matchup that the Big Red found themselves up by 18 near the end of the third quarter. Cornell struggled to get anything going on the ground with only 60 rushing yards, while quarterback Jameson Wang, he continued his amazing season, tossing for nearly 300 passing yards. Brown got the win, making a game-winning field goal with no time remaining in regulation to end it. Cornell head coach Dan Swanstrom said the depth of the team was a crucial reason why they could not add a notch in the win column.
Depth was a huge factor. With us getting worn out, inability to run the football offensively, extending the game, having to throw it a bunch. Those were huge factors, and came down to they made one more play than we did when it all came down to it.
Cornell hits the road once again on Saturday. Big Red is in New Jersey for an Ivy League matchup with Princeton.